Hello, good people of Ableton land. I'm back with my first device of 2026. My last few devices have been audio effects, but today I want to show you something a bit different. It's a sequencer. It's called Augur. About the name, back in ancient Rome, an augur was kind of like a prophet or a seer. They were responsible for predicting the future, and that's sort of what this device does. It predicts the future of a pattern of notes. It's inspired by a Eurorack module called the Turing Machine, and the base idea is that it generates a pattern for you. But then each step in that pattern has the potential to mutate, to slowly evolve and change as it plays. And so I've taken that idea and I've added a bunch of my own ideas, and I've come up with Augur, and I think it's quite useful and inspiring and fun. So it's a generative sequencer with a lot of bells and whistles. One of my favorite features is this whole modulation section here. It's not your typical modulation you'll find in the stock LFO device where you're just syncing some LFO to the tempo. This is actually generating each of these modulations based on the actual pattern playing. So you've got tension, for example, and this will inspect each note and measure how far away it is from the root note of the scale. And the further away it is, the higher the modulation value. Or heat, this one is watching the overall pattern and judging how busy it is, how many notes are active, and the busier, the higher the modulation. So I built this whole system of almost organic, physics-based modulations, which can be mapped to anything in life, and I think it's a really powerful way of adding subtle realism or organicness to an otherwise simple pattern. But I'm getting a bit ahead of myself, so we'll get to the mod stuff soon enough, and I'll leave some chapters down below if you do want to jump ahead. But let's get started. So firstly, this device connects with Ableton's global or clip-based scale mode, so we can activate that down here. And then we're guaranteed to be in key with the rest of the project. Or if you prefer to choose a key manually, you can of course do so, like so. So we've got a scale set, and now we'll jump here to the main dials. This one is, of course, mutate. It's the one that's deciding whether the pattern is going to mutate and how much it's going to mutate. So all the way off, and the pattern is essentially locked in place. But as we turn up this dial, you can see notes are turning on and off, and the actual note values are changing too. And if you find something you like, you can either just turn the mutate knob back to 0, or you can go up here to the lock section, and you can lock either just the rhythm, so that'll just lock the actual notes that are on, but still allow those notes to change values, or you can lock everything, like so, with the all button. And then while we're up here, let's talk about these buttons over here as well. So shuffle will just instantly generate you a brand new pattern every time you click it. And then, yeah, you can play with this by, maybe turning off mutate, shuffle around until you find something, and then maybe use mutate to mutate it slightly into something new. You'll also find that at high mutation values, sometimes your pattern gets a bit sparse. Like now, a lot of the notes have been eaten. And so we've got two buttons up here to deal with that. Come in handy for that. Refill will automatically just fill up the pattern completely, all notes on. And then with mutate turned up, the pattern will slowly evolve and eat itself, and some notes will die. And then if you do have a sparse pattern, you can also use this +1 button here to just add one single new value somewhere in the pattern every time you click it to slowly build up a pattern. And then the hold button, this is more of a performance effect. You press the button on and it will immediately stop at the step the playhead is currently at and just keep playing it. And if you press the button when the playhead is not over top of a note, it'll just jump back to wherever the closest note is. And getting a bit ahead of myself, but it's fun to play around while holding a note with the octave controls. And then we've got more toggle switches down here. So this one sets the playback direction. So we've got forwards, reverse, we've got ping pong, and we've got completely random, and then we've got drunk. So this one is kind of resembling a drunk person stumbling home. Every step it takes, it thinks, should I go left or right? And then it makes that decision, and then it repeats the whole thing on the next step. So you end up with a playhead that just stumbles in one direction, then back, then forward, etc. And then here we just set the speed of the sequencer. So right now we're playing 16th notes. We can go to 8 notes, quarter notes, or 30-second. So now we'll get back to these dials. Length just sets the amount of steps in a pattern. 16, of course, will line up nicely with 4/4 music, but you can also set, non-standard lengths like, say, 11, and then end up with some cool kind of polyrhythmic stuff happening. Density is fun. Density determines how many of the notes in the current pattern will actually fire. So when turned all the way up, everything you see visualized is going to play, but as you turn it down, you can see that notes start to disappear. And then you can, of course, turn it back up to bring back those exact same notes. And this is a fun way of just kind of thinning out a pattern, maybe for an intro or a breakdown, and then being able to revive those notes that were removed when you wish. Drift. Drift is different. It's like a bit of extra melodic sauce. It makes things extra melodic, if that makes sense. Basically just brings up new note possibilities, still within the scale. And yeah, the idea was to have a knob that can just come and interact with the current pattern of notes in a non-destructive way. So if you got something you like, you can temporarily modify it into something new, and then turn the dial off to bring back the original notes. And it's also fun to interact with this and with hold turned on, because it will adjust the notes. Like that. So duration sets the length of each note that's played, and in most cases you'll probably want to match the sequencer speed to this. So if we're on 16th speed, we play 16th notes, but in some cases, maybe you want to play big, long notes. And I'll just turn up the sustain on my synth patch, and then we can go play long notes. Like so. And then rhythm. This is similar to drift, but for note lengths. So when you turn it up, it's going to start adjusting the note lengths. It'll play some shorter notes and some longer notes. And yeah, just kind of vary the rhythm of the notes. And then over here we've got a few more controls. Octave just adjusts the octave of the notes being played. Chaos introduces the chance for each note in the pattern to be shifted up or down in octaves, like this. Human adds humanization to the velocity of the notes, so when it's turned down, all notes fire at exactly 100 velocity, but when turned up, we add various velocities, making things just feel a bit human and alive. And there's also a modulation that's connected to this, and I'll get to that soon. And then we've got swing. We've got 3 swing algorithms, classic 16th note and 8th note, both inspired by the swing algorithms on the MPC machines. And they can get pretty wonky if you go all the way up. And then we've got Dilla, which is an ode to Jay Dilla, a famous hip-hop producer who used an MPC and played in his beats live on the pads and often didn't quantize them, which gives a nice kind of human feel. And so while this isn't technically swing, it's just varying the timing of the notes, making them not hit perfectly on grid divisions if you want that kind of live, sloppier feel. So that's the main controls, and we still do have this MIDI in section here, which I think is quite interesting. But I really want to tell you about the modulation panel because I'm quite proud of it, and I think it's actually a new and interesting idea. So we open up the mod panel by clicking this mod button here. And then we've got these 8 lanes of modulation. Each one can be assigned to just about anything in Live. We just click map, and we click what we want it to map. And we're done. And for each of the 8 lanes, you can choose from one of 8 modulation algorithms that I've come up with. And I'm going to walk you through them all. So each of these modulation lanes has a amount number box at the end, which controls the actual amount of modulation sent out. It's also got a min and max control if you want to dial things in. So ramp is the simplest. It's just a line that goes from 0 to 127 every time the pattern repeats. And you can map it to filter cutoff, or in this case, I've mapped it to FM amount. So we'll turn it up here. And then every time the pattern repeats, FM amount slowly increases halfway, because I've got the max set to 52. We could go higher, or we could start higher. Tension. This one is where things get fun and unique. Tension measures the distance of the current note from the root note of your scale. So if that note is 2 intervals away, it'll send out a modest mod value. Or if the note is 7 intervals away, it'll send out a much higher mod value. Here I've got it mapped to the wavetable position, which gives us some nice, just organic movement. It also sounds really nice, I think, mapped to things like distortion or wavefolding or FM index. The sound kind of stays cleaner on the root notes, but then it kind of tears itself apart as it reaches higher intervals. Heat. This one measures the temperature of your pattern, and by that I mean if the pattern is busy with lots of notes, it's going to send out high modulation values. And if the pattern is sparse with lots of empty steps, it'll send lower values. Basically, every time the playhead moves to a new step, we add +20 to a number behind the scenes, and then every time that new step is empty, we subtract 5 from that amount. So yeah, you can map it to things like, again, filter cutoff or reverb mix, and then sparse rhythms are going to remain dark and dry, and then fast, busy patterns kind of cause things to bloom and open up naturally. Right now I've got it assigned to a unison amount, but let's try cutoff. And let's turn up the max value. And then let's let the pattern mutate itself until it quiets down. So yeah, you can see that when it gets a little more sparse, the heat values drop a bit. Not too far, but a bit. And again, it just adds a subtle, just kind of organic feel to things. Accent. This one is a direct follower of note velocity. So it's a modulation that mimics the loudness of each note. I've got it assigned to the tune here. We'll turn it up. And I've got it dialed in pretty narrowly, but we can increase it. And yeah, basically we're suddenly emphasizing the physical force of each hit. Louder notes are going to send a louder, longer, higher modulation value. I think this one is fun, mapped to things like decay or attack or distortion. All sorts of things, actually. Entropy. Okay, this one I literally dreamed up. I'd been working on this for a few weeks, and I woke up with this idea. And entropy tracks the repetitiveness of a pattern. If mutation is turned up and it's constantly changing, entropy never has the chance to rise. I've got it mapped to the feedback of an echo right now. But as soon as I turn down mutate and the pattern becomes stagnant, every time the pattern doesn't change, it rises a little bit, as you can see. And it takes about 20 repetitions of a loop for it to get to the full 127 value. And then as soon as you change something in your pattern by twisting the mutator density knob, it's going to slip back down to 0. But I think this is a really fun way to accentuate a pattern that's not changing. Maybe fade it out with a lo-fi effect, bit crusher, or in this case, slowly turning up the feedback until things get pretty crazy, and then mutate, and it rolls back to nothing. That's entropy. This next one I'm calling bio. It's an LFO that only advances when a note is played. So if the density is low, the LFO slows down. Let's turn it up. Kind of like a living biological LFO that's influenced by your actual pattern. You can maybe try mapping it to timbre or pan, whatever you like really. It creates like sort of a living texture that pulses in time with the density of your music, if that makes sense. I've got it set here to oscillator 2 position. Let's turn off oscillator 1. So when the density is really low, it moves very slow. And then when the density speeds up, so does the LFO. Okay, Walker. This one is similar to the drunk playhead direction we have over here. So all MIDI notes behind the scenes, they have an internal note number. And Walker checks each of those notes that's playing. And if it's an even number, it turns the mod value up. And if it's an odd number, it turns it down. So it stumbles, basically. Let's map it. Let's turn off OSC1. Go over here to OSC2. Let's map it to the volume just so it's super obvious what's happening. So as you can see, yeah, it stumbles up, it stumbles down. And again, we can adjust the minimum so it doesn't get super quiet. I think this one is fun mapped to something like maybe a fine-tune dial, maybe a filter. It kind of turns the hidden math of the pattern into a wandering organic curve or LFO that feels like almost like a physical object trying to balance itself. And then lastly, we have fractal. As I mentioned in the previous modulation, every note has an internal number associated with it. So a C3 is different than a C4 behind the scenes. Each possible note has that unique number. So every note produces a unique fixed chaos value that I can use here. This one is fun mapped to, grain position, wavetable position. Here I've got it mapped to decay. So we randomly get longer or shorter notes. And so every time we play, say, a D#4, it's going to play that exact decay amount because it's receiving the same modulation value every time. So it kind of, it triggers a specific texture for every note, kind of creating like a glitch pattern that's repeatable and actually linked to the melody. I've got another instance of Augur over here, just attached to a marimba sample pack. And this one I went a little wacky with it. I've attached things to like the fractals controlling the repeat button on a beat repeat. I'm controlling the articulation, motion width, motion speed, color. Just give it a play. So I think this system is really fun and interesting, and it's not something I've seen in other devices. I've been having a lot of fun with it. And I guess one more thing just to mention, so each of these lanes can select any of these 8 algorithms. But if you don't like one, if you don't find one useful, you don't have to use ramp. You can just switch it to fractal. You can switch them all to fractal if you wish. Whatever you like, really. So that's the modulation panel. Okay, finally, let's talk about this MIDI In mode here. So turning on this MIDI In button changes the device from a sequencer into sort of a pseudo-sequencer meets arpeggiator. I'll show you. It's turned on. We've got 3 modes here. We've got hybrid, latch, and gated. Let's fill up the pattern. I'll start with hybrid mode. I've got a MIDI clip here, and it's just a 3-note chord, pretty high up, just so we can hear the difference. And it's not playing right now, so nothing's happening. And as soon as we play the chord, clip, when Augur receives MIDI notes in, it then uses those notes instead of the selected scale to generate its output. And then when the notes stop, it falls back to the scale that's selected in hybrid mode. And just to make it more obvious, I'll shorten this chord so we're just playing it for a quarter of a bar. And then with latch mode, it's similar, except it won't revert back to the selected scale. Once it hears some notes, it just sticks with them until we stop playback, until we turn off the mode. And then the gated mode is just that, it's gated. It listens for incoming notes and it plays the current pattern with those notes instead of the selected scale. When it stops receiving notes, it doesn't revert back to the scale. It doesn't latch, it just plays silence. And then the last piece of this MIDI in puzzle is this chords button. So you turn this on, and these three modes now do the same things, but instead of taking your played in notes and arpeggiating them, Augur will just spit out the exact chords it received. And then it falls back to arpeggiating notes. With latch, it just, again, hangs on to that last chord it saw, plays it wherever there is an active note in the pattern. And with gated mode, it plays the chord and then silence. Yeah, so that is the MIDI in mode, and again, I think it's interesting and useful. There's one other feature that I wanted to show you. It's this little export button down here. If you have something you like, you want to save it, you want to use it elsewhere. For one, you can do typical MIDI stuff where you can have a new MIDI track receiving MIDI from Augur. But if you feel like being a little lazy, you can just press export and it'll just spit out a pattern of the exact notes, exact pattern in Augur. And we're getting to the end. As for push integration, it's there. We have many banks to control everything with one exception. These mapping buttons here. This is not something that the push can handle. Once things are mapped, you can of course control all of this stuff with the push without using the computer at all. But you'll have to set up your mappings on your computer first. And then once they're set up, yeah, you can control everything else. So this is one small drawback here for push standalone users, unfortunately, but there's just no way for me to set this up given the integration with the push that Ableton offers. One day it would be super cool, but for now, I apologize, push 3 standalone users. But for the rest of you push folks, yeah, I think this is actually a very fun device on the push. Okay, that is Augur. I feel like I've been talking for a while, but there's a lot to cover. I really enjoyed building this. I just started with that core idea and then just kept finding interesting ideas to incorporate, and this is where I ended up. I truly appreciate you watching this far in the video. I appreciate all of you. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I'm doing this to put food on the table for my young family, and I'm so grateful to be here doing this, making these devices, hearing the music you're making with them. So many of you have reached out and you've all been lovely, and I really appreciate you. And I actually have a lot of stuff planned for this year. I'm working on some things. Can't say too much yet, but people have asked for certain things. I am working on those things. I have a lot on the go, and you'll definitely be hearing more from me soon. Please feel free to reach out if you have any comments or questions on this or other devices. I am here for you. Links down below to my shops. Thank you for your time. I hope you are having a very nice day and month and year so far. And let's talk soon.